The stagecoach rattled to a stop in front of Miller's General Store, kicking up a cloud of dust that shimmered gold in the late afternoon sun. Amelia Mason clutched her wedding dress tighter to her chest, fighting back tears as the driver handed down her trunk with a sympathetic nod. 3 days ago, she'd left this very spot as a mail-order bride full of hope. Now she was back in Willow Creek, returned like unwanted merchandise with a note pinned to her coat. Too stubborn for a proper wife. Willow Creek, Wyoming Territory, 1875, was no place for a woman without prospects. At 23, Amelia was already considered a spinster by most standards. Her parents had passed 2 winters ago, leaving her the family's modest home on the edge of town and not much else. The mail-order arrangement had seemed like Providence a chance at security, perhaps even happiness eventually. "Back so soon, Miss Mason," Mr. Miller called from the doorway of his store, his gray mustache twitching with poorly concealed curiosity. Amelia lifted her chin, refusing to show her humiliation. "It appears Mr. Holloway and I had different expectations, Mr. Miller. HMPH. Third bride that man sent back. Reckon he's looking for a doormat, not a wife." Amelia blinked back tears. "Well, I've never been much good at being walked upon." "Good for you, girl," the shopkeeper said kindly. "Need help getting your things home?" Before she could answer, the sound of approaching hoofbeats drew their attention. A tall figure on horseback emerged through the dust, the setting sun silhouetting broad shoulders beneath a worn leather duster. Jackson O'Malley pulled his horse to a stop, observing the scene with keen interest. At 30, he was one of the most successful ranchers in the territory and one of the most elusive bachelors. He tipped his hat back, revealing eyes the color of a summer storm. "Afternoon, Miss Mason. Didn't expect to see you back in town so soon." Amelia's cheeks burned. Was there anyone who hadn't heard about her humiliation? "Mr. O'Malley," she acknowledged stiffly. His gaze fell to the wedding dress in her arms, then to the note still pinned to her travel coat. With a swift movement, he leaned down from his saddle and plucked it free. "Too stubborn for a proper wife," he read aloud, then let out a low whistle. That fool Holloway wouldn't know a treasure if it was dropped in his lap. Amelia stared up at him, unsure whether to be flattered or offended. "I beg your pardon." A slow smile spread across Jackson's face, transforming his rugged features. "Stubborn is exactly what I need, Miss Mason. A woman with spirit to match this wild country." The words hung in the air between them, unexpected and laden with possibility. "I don't understand," Amelia said carefully. Jackson dismounted in one fluid motion, tying his horse to the hitching post. "Let me help you with your trunk, and I'll explain on the way to your house." Mr. Miller was watching the exchange with undisguised interest. Amelia hesitated, torn between propriety and curiosity. She barely knew Jackson O'Malley beyond his reputation as a fair employer and successful rancher. Their paths had crossed occasionally in town, exchanging polite greetings and nothing more. "I can manage," she said, reaching for her trunk. Jackson's hand landed on the trunk handle at the same time, his fingers brushing against hers. "I insist, Miss Mason. Consider it a neighborly courtesy." Amelia reluctantly stepped back. "Very well, thank you." Jackson hoisted her trunk onto his shoulder with ease. "I'll bring my wagon around for the rest of your things. This way." As they walked toward her small home at the edge of town, Amelia cast sideways glances at the tall cowboy. He moved with the easy confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin, seemingly unbothered by the weight of her trunk or the curious stares of townspeople they passed. "You said you would explain," she prompted when they were out of earshot of the general store. Jackson nodded. "I've been looking for a foreman for my north pasture. The cabin there needs someone capable, someone who won't be frightened off by the first winter storm or lone wolf. Someone stubborn enough to stand their ground. Amelia stopped walking. You're offering me a job, a woman. I'm offering you an opportunity, he clarified. My ranch needs a competent hand who can manage accounts, supplies, and occasionally the men working that section. Your father taught you bookkeeping, didn't he? Before he passed, she nodded slowly, surprised he knew that detail. Yes, and you've kept your own home these past 2 years, managed your own affairs. Of course, but then you're qualified, Jackson said simply. The position comes with the cabin, good pay, and my protection. You'd be respected as my employee. Amelia studied him warily. Why would you offer this to me? There must be men in town looking for work. They had reached her small house, and Jackson set the trunk down on the porch. He straightened, meeting her gaze directly. Because I've watched you these past 2 years, Miss Mason. Watched you maintain your dignity despite the gossip, keep your home despite the hardship, and refuse to compromise your spirit despite the pressure to remarry quickly. That's the kind of character I want overseeing my investments. His honesty left her momentarily speechless. It was true that since her parents' death, she'd fought to maintain her independence while the town waited for her to either marry or move away. That independence had become precious to her, and perhaps had contributed to her stubborn reputation. I would need time to consider, she finally said. Jackson nodded. Of course, I'll come by tomorrow for your answer. He turned to leave, then paused. And Miss Mason, that Holloway fellow did you a favor sending you back. A man who can't appreciate a woman's strength doesn't deserve her tenderness either. With that, he tipped his hat and strode away, leaving Amelia staring after him with a curious mixture of wariness and hope. That night, Amelia paced her small home, weighing Jackson O'Malley's unexpected offer against her dwindling options. The truth was, she had spent nearly all her savings on the trip to meet Mr. Holloway. The mail-order arrangement had seemed sensible, a practical solution to her precarious situation. She had even convinced herself she might eventually develop affection for the Montana farmer who had written such sensible, if unimaginative, letters. Reality had proven harsher. Upon meeting her, Jonathan Holloway had immediately begun listing her deficiencies. She asked too many questions, had opinions on how his farm might be improved, and suggested changes to his household. By the 3rd day, he had declared her impossibly headstrong and arranged for her return journey. Now she was back where she started with even fewer resources. The O'Malley proposition was unexpected but timely. Still, she had concerns. What would people say about a single woman living on a ranch, even in a separate cabin? Would her reputation, already fragile, be irreparably damaged? A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Agnes Potter, the midwife and closest thing to a friend Amelia had in town. "Heard you were back," Agnes said without preamble, stepping inside. At 45, Agnes had never married, choosing instead to dedicate herself to bringing new life into the world. "Also heard Jackson O'Malley walked you home," Amelia sighed. "News travels fast." "It's a small town with little entertainment," Agnes replied, settling herself at the kitchen table. "Want to tell me what happened with Holloway?" Over tea, Amelia recounted her brief, disastrous attempt at becoming a farmer's wife. Agnes listened without interruption, her weathered face showing no surprise. "And now O'Malley's offered you a position," Agnes said when Amelia finished. "As his foreman, of all things. Is it crazy to consider it?" Amelia asked, genuinely seeking guidance. Agnes considered the question. "Jackson O'Malley has a reputation as a fair man. Never heard rumors of him mistreating women or workers. Pays well from what I understand." But a woman working as a ranch foreman, it's unheard of. So is a woman delivering babies without a husband, but here I am, Agnes pointed out. Times are changing, Amelia, slowly, but they are. And that north pasture cabin is at least 5 miles from the main house. You'd have privacy and independence. Amelia traced the rim of her teacup. I'd still be dependent on a man for my livelihood. We're all dependent on someone one way or another, Agnes said pragmatically. At least this way you'd be earning your keep with your mind, not your hand in marriage. The next morning, Amelia rose early and dressed with care in her most practical dress. If she was going to accept Jackson's offer, she wanted to appear capable and professional from the start. She pinned her honey-brown hair into a simple but tidy bun and practiced what she would say when he arrived. Just after 9, she heard the rumble of wagon wheels. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto her porch. Jackson pulled his wagon to a stop, 2 strong horses in the traces. He looked different today, still rugged, but more polished in a clean shirt and vest. His dark hair was damp from washing and he'd trimmed his beard. "Good morning, Miss Mason," he called, jumping down from the wagon seat. "Have you considered my offer?" "I have," Amelia said, descending the porch steps. "I'm prepared to accept with conditions." A smile tugged at Jackson's mouth. "Already negotiating? I'm not surprised. What are your terms?" "First, I want a contract, properly written and signed, stating my duties, compensation, and rights to the cabin while in your employ." Jackson nodded. "Reasonable. Next, I'll need authority that the men will respect. Your public acknowledgement that my decisions regarding the North Pasture operations are to be followed. Granted, though some might test you at first." "I can handle that," Amelia said confidently. "And finally, I want the freedom to continue some of my own pursuits. I've been writing articles for the territorial newspaper under a pen name. It brings in a small income." Jackson's eyebrows rose. "You're the one writing those pieces on frontier development, under the name A.M. Wells." Amelia blinked in surprise. "You've read them." "Everyone," he admitted. "They're insightful, especially the series on water rights. I've implemented some of those suggestions on my own land." A flush of pleasure warmed Amelia's cheeks. "Thank you. So you agree to my conditions?" "I do." He extended his hand. "Do we have an agreement, Miss Mason?" Amelia took his hand, noting the strength in his grip balanced by a surprising gentleness. "We do, Mr. O'Malley." "Jackson, please. If we're to work together, formality will become tiresome." "Then you must call me Amelia." Their hands remained joined a moment longer than necessary, an unspoken current of mutual respect and something more passing between them. "When would you like me to start?" she asked, reluctantly withdrawing her hand. "Today, if possible. I've brought the wagon for your belongings." Amelia glanced back at her small house. "What about this place?" "Keep it," Jackson suggested. "Rent it out for additional income or hold it as security. The cabin at the North Pasture is yours as long as you work for me, but having your own property gives you options." His thoughtfulness surprised her. Most men would have expected her to sell or abandon her home, removing her means of independence. "That's very considerate." Jackson shrugged. "Just practical. Shall we begin loading your things?" By midday, they were on their way to the O'Malley ranch. Amelia sat beside Jackson on the wagon seat, her most necessary belongings packed behind them. They would return for the rest later. The 5-mile journey took them through rolling grasslands dotted with wildflowers, the distant mountains forming a jagged blue line against the horizon. "It's beautiful land," Amelia observed, breathing in the scent of sage and grass. "It is," Jackson agreed, his voice softening. "My father started with just 50 acres and 6 cows. Now we have over 2,000 acres and 500 head of cattle. Impressive growth." Hard work and good timing, he said modestly. The railroad coming through 5 years ago changed everything. Suddenly, eastern markets were accessible. He pointed to the west. That's why the North Pasture is so important. It's our best grazing land with reliable water even in drought years. Having someone manage it properly means everything to the ranch's future. Amelia studied his profile as he spoke, noting the pride and passion in his expression. You really love this land, don't you? Jackson turned to her, his gray eyes intense. It's more than land to me. It's a legacy, a living thing that responds to how you treat it. Respect it, work with its nature rather than against it, and it rewards you abundantly. Something in his words resonated with Amelia. Wasn't that what she wanted too? Not to be forced into a mold that didn't fit, but to be respected for her natural strengths. They crested a small rise, and suddenly, the main ranch buildings came into view, a large 2-story house built of sturdy logs, several barns and outbuildings, corrals and bunkhouses for the ranch hands. Even from a distance, Amelia could see it was a well-organized operation. Home, Jackson said simply, though pride colored his voice. They continued past the main compound, following a lesser-used trail that led through a stand of cottonwoods toward the North Pasture. After another mile, they came upon a clearing where a sturdy cabin stood, smoke curling from its chimney. Someone's there, Amelia noted with surprise. Mrs. Hernandez, Jackson explained. She's been getting the cabin ready for you. She cooks for the ranch hands and helps with household matters. The cabin was larger than Amelia had expected, 4 rooms instead of the typical 1 or 2. The main room served as kitchen and living area, with a bedroom, a small office, and an additional bedroom that Jackson explained could serve as storage or guest quarters when needed. Everything was simple but sturdy and clean. Mrs. Hernandez, a plump woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, showed Amelia around the cabin. I've stocked the pantry with essentials, señorita. The men bring fresh water from the creek daily, and there's a good garden plot out back that gets sun most of the day. It's wonderful, Amelia said sincerely, better than I expected. Mr. O'Malley, he takes care of his people, Mrs. Hernandez said with a meaningful look. You'll see. After helping Amelia settle in, Jackson took her on a tour of the North Pasture operations. They rode on horseback, Jackson on his tall bay gelding, and Amelia on a gentle mare he'd brought specifically for her use. You ride well, he observed as they traversed the rolling landscape. My father believed daughters should be as capable as sons, Amelia explained. He taught me to ride, shoot, and manage accounts with equal importance. A wise man. You'll need all those skills here. He showed her the boundaries of the pasture, the creek that provided water, and introduced her to the 3 ranch hands who lived in a smaller cabin nearby and managed the daily care of the cattle in this section. The men: Thomas, a veteran cowboy in his 40s, Miguel, a skilled Mexican vaquero, and Daniel, a younger man eager to prove himself, regarded Amelia with varying degrees of skepticism when Jackson introduced her as their new foreman. Miss Mason will be overseeing all operations in the North Pasture, Jackson informed them firmly. Her word carries the same weight as mine. Is that understood? Thomas, clearly the informal leader among them, studied Amelia for a long moment before nodding slowly. Yes, boss. But begging your pardon, miss, you ever managed cattle before? No, Amelia answered honestly. But I learn quickly, and I respect expertise. I'll be relying on your knowledge while I gain experience. Her candid response seemed to ease some of the tension. Thomas's weathered face relaxed slightly. Fair enough. We can teach you what you need to know about the animals. Long as you can handle the books and supplies, we'll get along fine. By the time they returned to her cabin, the sun was setting, painting the landscape in gold and amber. Jackson dismounted and helped Amelia down from her horse, his hands strong and steady at her waist. "It's a lot to take in on your first day," he acknowledged as they stood facing each other in the lengthening shadows. "It is," Amelia agreed, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "But I'm not afraid of hard work or challenges." "I never thought you were." His voice had softened. "That's why you're here." For a moment, neither moved. Then Jackson stepped back, clearing his throat. "I'll ride out tomorrow to see how you're settling in. If you need anything before then, just send word with one of the men." "Thank you, Jackson, for this opportunity." He mounted his horse, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't quite read in the fading light. "Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you've made it through your first cattle drive." With a tip of his hat, he rode away, leaving Amelia standing before her new home, filled with a curious mixture of trepidation and excitement for what lay ahead. The first weeks at the North Pasture tested Amelia in ways she hadn't anticipated. Physical exhaustion from early mornings and long days, learning the rhythms of ranch life. Mental challenges, mastering the complex accounting system Jackson had developed. And most difficult, earning the genuine respect of the men who worked under her direction. Thomas proved to be her greatest ally after an incident 2 weeks into her tenure. A cattle buyer from Cheyenne had arrived unexpectedly, insisting on dealing only with the man in charge. When Amelia introduced herself as the foreman, he'd laughed outright and demanded to see O'Malley. "Mr. O'Malley has authorized me to handle all transactions for the North Pasture," Amelia had stated firmly, standing her ground despite the buyer's dismissive attitude. "I don't do business with women," the man had sneered. "Now fetch O'Malley or I'll take my business elsewhere." Before Amelia could respond, Thomas had stepped forward, his weathered face hard as stone. "Mr. On this ranch, Miss Mason speaks with Mr. O'Malley's authority." "You disrespect her, you disrespect him, and none of us take kindly to that." Miguel and Daniel had moved to flank Thomas, presenting a united front. The buyer, seeing he was outnumbered and outmatched, had reluctantly conducted his business with Amelia, though his manner remained surly. After he'd left, Amelia had turned to the men, deeply touched by their support. "Thank you. You didn't have to do that." Thomas had shrugged, embarrassed by her gratitude. "You've been fair with us, worked alongside us, and learned quick. Figure you've earned the respect that comes with the position." From that day forward, a genuine camaraderie developed between Amelia and the ranch hands. They taught her about cattle, rangeland management, and the dozens of daily tasks that kept the operation running smoothly. In return, she streamlined their supply requests, improved their living conditions, and made sure Jackson knew of their hard work and loyalty. Jackson himself was a consistent but not overwhelming presence. True to his word, he visited regularly to check on operations, usually arriving unannounced midweek and staying for a few hours. Sometimes he joined them for the noon meal, sitting at Amelia's small kitchen table and discussing ranch business. Other times he rode the pastures with her, pointing out improvements or potential issues. During these rides, Amelia found herself increasingly drawn to the quiet strength and intelligence of the rancher. He listened to her ideas with genuine interest, implemented her suggestions when they made sense, and explained his reasoning when they didn't. There was never a sense that he humored her because of her gender. He simply respected competence, regardless of its source. As spring progressed into early summer, Amelia settled into her new role with growing confidence. Her small cabin became a home, with curtains she'd sewn herself and wildflowers in mason jars on the table. In the evenings, After her work was done, she continued writing her newspaper pieces, drawing inspiration from her new perspective as part of a successful ranching operation. One evening in late June, as she sat on her porch watching the sunset paint the distant mountains, she heard approaching hoofbeats. Expecting one of the ranch hands with a question about the next day's work, she was surprised to see Jackson riding toward her cabin. He rarely visited in the evenings and never without purpose. Something in his expression more serious than usual sent a flicker of concern through her. "Jackson," she greeted him as he dismounted, "is everything all right?" "Evening, Amelia." He removed his hat, running a hand through his dark hair. "Mind if I sit a spell? I've got something to discuss with you." "Of course." She indicated the second chair on her small porch. "Can I offer you coffee or something stronger?" "Coffee would be welcome, thank you." While she prepared it inside, Amelia's mind raced with possibilities. Was he dissatisfied with her work? Had there been complaints? Was he reducing the size of the operation? When she returned with 2 steaming cups, Jackson accepted his with a grateful nod. "The railroad's expanding the line," he said without preamble. "They're putting in a new spur that will connect directly to Willow Creek." Amelia sat down, processing this information. "That's significant news. It will change everything for the region." "Indeed." "Cattle shipments will be easier, supplies cheaper, new markets accessible." He took a sip of his coffee. "I've been offered the contract to provide beef for the railroad workers while they construct the line." "Jackson, that's wonderful," Amelia exclaimed. "How many head will they need?" 20 a month for the next 6 months. Good money, guaranteed payment." "The North pasture herd could handle that easily," Amelia calculated quickly. "We'd need to adjust our rotation schedule, perhaps bring in some of the yearlings from the east section earlier than planned, but it's definitely manageable." A smile tugged at Jackson's mouth as he listened to her analysis. "That's why I'm here, actually. The contract requires I deliver the first shipment personally to their headquarters in Denver. I'll be gone for at least 2 weeks. "Oh." Amelia absorbed this information. "When do you leave?" "Day after tomorrow." He set his coffee cup down and turned to face her fully. "Amelia, I need you to oversee the entire ranch while I'm gone, not just the North pasture everything." She stared at him, momentarily speechless. "The entire operation. But what about Mr. Peterson?" Jackson's longtime foreman ran the main ranch operations with nearly 20 men under his supervision. "Frank's a good man with cattle, but he can't handle the business side, the accounts, the planning, the supply negotiations." Jackson leaned forward, his expression earnest. "You can. These past months, you've proven that beyond any doubt." Pride and uncertainty warred within Amelia. "The men respect you, Jackson. They'll follow your orders without question, but a woman giving directions to the entire crew." "They'll respect my choice," he said with quiet confidence. "And once they see your capability, they'll respect you too, just like Thomas and the others came to." The comparison gave Amelia pause. It was true that she'd won over her small crew through consistent, fair leadership and willingness to learn. Could she do the same on a larger scale? "What exactly would you need me to do?" she asked cautiously. Jackson's face brightened, sensing her willingness to consider the proposal. "Move into the main house temporarily. Meet with Frank each morning to coordinate the day's work. Handle any business decisions that can't wait for my return. Keep the books current." The thought of living in Jackson's home, even temporarily, sent an unexpected flutter through Amelia's stomach. "Your house? Wouldn't that seem improper?" "Mrs. Hernandez will be there as chaperone," he assured her. "And frankly, Amelia, your reputation for propriety is well established. No one who knows you would question your character." His confidence in her both touched and strengthened her resolve. If Jackson O'Malley believed she could manage his entire ranch, his life's work and legacy, how could she refuse the opportunity to prove him right? "Very well," she said finally. "I accept the responsibility." Relief and something warmer filled Jackson's eyes. "I never doubted you would." He reached across the space between their chairs and briefly covered her hand with his. "Thank you, Amelia." The simple touch sent warmth cascading through her. And in that moment, Amelia realized with startling clarity that her feelings for her employer had grown far beyond professional respect or friendship. Somehow, without her noticing the gradual transformation, Jackson O'Malley had become the man against whom she measured all others. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. She couldn't afford to indulge such feelings, not when she'd finally established herself as a capable, independent woman, not when she was about to face her greatest professional challenge yet. "You should finish your coffee," she said, gently withdrawing her hand. "And then tell me everything I need to know before you leave." 2 days later, Amelia stood in the yard of the main ranch house, watching as Jackson made final preparations for his journey to Denver. He'd spent the previous day introducing her to the operation's finer details, ensuring she understood his expectations and processes. Now, as dawn broke over the eastern horizon, he was securing the last of his bags to his saddle. "Remember, the Hardwick contract needs renewal by the 15th, he reminded her. "Don't let him talk you down on price. Our beef is worth every penny we charge." "I remember," Amelia assured him, trying not to smile at his obvious reluctance to leave his ranch in another's hands, even hers. "And I'll send the monthly receipts to the bank in Cheyenne as usual." Jackson nodded, then glanced toward the bunkhouse where the ranch hands were emerging for breakfast. "Frank knows you're in charge. He'll back you up." "We've already spoken," Amelia confirmed. "Stop worrying, Jackson. Your ranch will still be here when you return." He turned to her then, his expression softening. "I know it will. There's no one I trust more with it than you, Amelia." The sincerity in his voice made her heart catch. Before she could respond, Mrs. Hernandez emerged from the house with a bundle wrapped in cloth. "Food for your journey, Mr. O'Malley," the housekeeper said, handing it to him. "And Miss Mason and I will take good care of everything here." "I don't doubt it for a moment," Jackson said, securing the package to his saddlebags. "Thank you, Mrs. Hernandez." With one last look around his property, Jackson mounted his horse. 2 weeks, he said to Amelia. 3 at the most. "Safe travels," she replied, suddenly wishing he didn't have to go. "We'll be fine." With a tip of his hat, he turned his horse toward the road and rode away. Amelia watched until he disappeared over the ridge, then squared her shoulders and turned toward the ranch house. She had work to do. The first week of Jackson's absence passed in a blur of activity. Amelia established a routine: quickly breakfast with Mrs. Hernandez, morning meetings with Frank to plan the day's work, afternoons handling correspondence and accounts, evenings checking the daily reports from various sections of the ranch. She rode out frequently to observe operations firsthand, asking questions and learning the broader scope of the O'Malley enterprise. Most of the men accepted her authority with minimal grumbling, following Frank's lead in treating her with professional respect. A few of the older hands remained skeptical, watching her with narrowed eyes and following her directions with deliberate slowness. The real test came on the 8th day of Jackson's absence, when a violent summer storm swept across the territory. Thunder boomed across the valley as rain poured down in blinding sheets. Amelia was reviewing accounts in Jackson's study when Frank burst in, water streaming from his slicker. "Flash flood warning," he reported grimly. Creek's rising fast and we've got 30 head grazing in the lower meadow. Amelia was on her feet immediately. How many men do you need? Every available hand. Those cattle are prime stock and the meadow could be underwater within the hour. I'll join you, Amelia said, already reaching for her rain gear. Frank hesitated. Miss Mason, it's dangerous work in weather like this. All the more reason every capable rider should help, she countered. I can handle myself, Frank. Let's not waste time arguing. Outside, the ranch hands were already mounting up, faces grim beneath rain-slicked hats. A few exchanged glances when Amelia appeared in riding clothes, but no one voiced objection as she swung into the saddle of Jackson's second best horse, a powerful black gelding with the stamina needed for difficult conditions. The ride to the lower meadow was treacherous, with visibility reduced to mere yards and mud making the trail slippery. When they arrived, the situation was worse than anticipated. The creek had already breached its banks, and panicked cattle were moving deeper into danger rather than toward higher ground. We need to split up, Frank shouted over the storm. Circle around behind them and push them toward the north ridge. Amelia nodded, understanding the strategy. I'll take the far side, she volunteered, pointing to where several cattle had strayed farthest from safety. Before Frank could object, she urged her horse forward, riding hard through the driving rain. The black gelding responded magnificently, seeming to understand the urgency of their mission. Together, they navigated the increasingly waterlogged terrain, reaching the stranded cattle just as water began swirling around their legs. For the next hour, Amelia worked alongside the ranch hands, moving cattle to safety through increasingly dangerous conditions. Twice her horse nearly lost footing in the rising water, but each time recovered with powerful surges of muscle and will. By the time the last steer was driven to higher ground, Amelia was soaked to the skin and exhausted, but exhilarated by their success. As the men regrouped on the ridge, she saw new respect in their eyes. Jacob Miller, one of the most skeptical of the older hands, rode up beside her. "That was fine riding, Miss Mason," he said gruffly. "Mr. O'Malley would be proud." Coming from Jacob, this was high praise indeed. "Thank you," Amelia replied simply. "You all worked admirably. Not a single head lost." Frank approached, his expression a mixture of relief and newfound respect. "We should get back to the ranch," he said. "This storm isn't letting up any time soon." The return journey was even more difficult, with the trail now transformed into flowing rivulets of mud and water. They were halfway back when Amelia noticed one of the younger hands, Peter, struggling with his horse. The animal was limping badly, clearly injured during the cattle drive. Amelia reined in beside him. "Your horse is lamed. Double up with me, this fellow can carry us both." Peter looked mortified at the suggestion. "Miss, I couldn't." "Don't be foolish," she interrupted. "We need to get back to the ranch and you're slowing everyone down. Pride won't keep you warm if you're stranded out here all night." Her practical assessment left no room for argument. Red-faced but pragmatic, Peter abandoned his injured mount after removing the saddle and climbed up behind Amelia. The black gelding adjusted to the additional weight without complaint, maintaining a steady pace back to the ranch. By the time they reached the ranch yard, the storm was beginning to abate, though rain still fell steadily. "Mrs. Hernandez waited on the porch with lanterns and hot coffee, clucking with concern at their bedraggled state. "All accounted for?" Frank asked, conducting a final head count. "All present," Amelia confirmed, helping Peter dismount. "And all cattle secured on the north ridge. We'll need to bring them feed tomorrow if the meadow remains flooded." "Already arranged," Frank said with a nod of approval. "You think like a rancher, Miss Mason." It was the highest compliment he could have paid her, and Amelia accepted it with a grateful smile. "Thank you, Frank. Now let's get these men some hot food and dry clothes. It's been a long day." Later that night, after changing into dry clothes and helping Mrs. Hernandez serve a hearty stew to the exhausted ranch hands, Amelia sat alone in Jackson's study. The fire crackled warmly in the grate as she recorded the day's events in the ranch journal, including the loss of Peter's horse and the condition of the lower meadow. She found herself wondering what Jackson would think of her handling of the crisis. Would he approve of her decision to ride out with the men, or would he consider it reckless? A soft knock at the study door interrupted her thoughts. Mrs. Hernandez entered with a steaming mug. "Hot chocolate," the housekeeper said, placing it on the desk. "My mother's recipe. Good for the spirit after a difficult day." "Thank you," Amelia said gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "That's very thoughtful." Mrs. Hernandez lingered, studying Amelia with maternal concern. "You did well today. The men are talking about it in the bunkhouse." "I just did what needed doing," Amelia demurred. "As does Mr. O'Malley," the older woman observed. "Perhaps that is why you work so well together." Something in her tone made Amelia glance up sharply. "We have a good professional relationship." Mrs. Hernandez's eyes twinkled knowingly. "If you say so, señorita." She moved toward the door, then paused. "But I have worked for Mr. O'Malley for 5 years. Never before has he trusted anyone as he trusts you, not just with his ranch, but with his home." She gestured around the study. "These are private spaces. Yet he welcomes you here without hesitation." Before Amelia could formulate a response, the housekeeper bid her good night and departed, leaving her alone with thoughts even more turbulent than before. Was Mrs. Hernandez right? Did Jackson's trust in her extend beyond professional confidence? And more troublingly, did she want it to? As she sipped her chocolate and stared into the fire, Amelia was forced to confront the truth she'd been avoiding. Somewhere along the way, her feelings for Jackson O'Malley had deepened into something far more personal than employee loyalty. The realization both thrilled and terrified her. The remainder of Jackson's absence passed without further crises. The storm damage was repaired, cattle operations continued smoothly, and Amelia found herself settling comfortably into the rhythm of managing the entire ranch. She maintained her routine of morning meetings with Frank, afternoon business matters, and evening records, all while continuing to oversee the North Pasture operations specifically assigned to her. On the morning Jackson was expected to return, Amelia found herself unusually anxious. She changed her dress twice before settling on a practical blue calico that complemented her eyes. Mrs. Hernandez noticed her preoccupation and smiled knowingly, but said nothing as she prepared a special welcome home dinner. By mid-afternoon, there was still no sign of Jackson. Amelia tried to focus on her work, but found herself repeatedly glancing out the study window toward the road. When the dinner hour arrived with no word, concern began to replace anticipation. "Perhaps he was delayed in Denver," Mrs. Hernandez suggested as she checked on the roast she'd prepared. "Business often takes longer than expected." "You're probably right," Amelia agreed, though uneasiness lingered. "We should proceed with the evening meal for the men." They were just serving dinner to the ranch hands when a rider appeared in the yard, not Jackson, but a messenger from town. Amelia excused herself and went to meet him. "Telegram for Miss Mason," the young man announced, handing her an envelope. "Station master said it was important." Heart racing, Amelia tore open the envelope. The message was brief. "Delayed, stop business complications, stop returning with cattle buyer, stop expect U.S. in 3 days, stop." Jackson relief flooded through her. Just a delay, nothing more serious. She thanked and paid the messenger, then returned to the dining room to share the news with the others. 3 more days, Frank mused. That gives us time to finish branding the spring calves before he returns. He'll be pleased to find that task complete. Amelia nodded in agreement. Let's plan to start tomorrow, then. The next morning dawned clear and warm, perfect weather for the demanding work of branding. Amelia rode out with the men to the south pasture, where the cows and calves had been gathered. The scene was controlled chaos, dust rising from the ground as calves were roped and dragged to the branding fires. The smell of burning hair and hide mixing with the lowing of cattle and shouts of the cowboys. Frank insisted that Amelia observe rather than participate directly in the more dangerous aspects of the work, a concession she accepted gracefully. Instead, she kept records of each animal processed, noting any health concerns the men reported. By midday, they had completed nearly half the herd. Amelia was distributing water to the tired cowboys when a rider approached from the direction of town. As he drew closer, she recognized Samuel Tucker, the banker from Willow Creek. "Miss Mason," Tucker called, reining in his horse. "I'm glad to find you here. I've been looking for Mr. O'Malley." "He's still in Denver," Amelia explained, stepping forward. "I'm managing the ranch in his absence. Can I help you with something?" Tucker's expression soured slightly. "It's a business matter. Perhaps I should return when O'Malley is available." Frank moved to stand beside Amelia. "Miss Mason handles all ranch business in Mr. O'Malley's absence, Mr. Tucker. Boss's orders." The banker hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the arrangement. Finally, he sighed. "Very well. The matter concerns the loan for the new breeding bulls. The bank requires additional collateral before proceeding." Amelia frowned. "That wasn't part of the original agreement. Mr. O'Malley negotiated those terms with your bank last month." "Circumstances have changed," Tucker said stiffly. "The bank's board of directors feels the investment is riskier than initially assessed," understanding dawned. "Is this because Mr. O'Malley left a woman in charge during his absence?" Tucker's silence was answer enough. "I see." Amelia's voice cooled. "Mr. Tucker, I've been reviewing the ranch accounts for the past 10 days. The O'Malley Ranch has maintained impeccable financial standing for over 15 years. Our beef contracts for the coming season already exceed last year's income by 20%. And the breeding program Mr. O'Malley wishes to expand has already improved our stock value considerably." She stepped closer to the banker's horse. "If your bank is no longer interested in a profitable partnership with the most successful ranch in the territory, I'm certain the bank in Cheyenne will be. In fact, I believe Mr. O'Malley already has a relationship with them for some of his larger transactions." Tucker's face reddened. "Now, Miss Mason, there's no need for hasty decisions. I'm simply conveying the board's concerns. And I'm simply informing you of our options," Amelia replied pleasantly. "The O'Malley Ranch values partners who recognize our worth all aspects of our operation." The banker studied her for a long moment, clearly reassessing his initial judgment. "Perhaps I misunderstood the situation. I'll convey to the board that operations are proceeding satisfactorily in Mr. O'Malley's absence." "That would be appreciated," Amelia said with a polite smile. "And please remind them that the original terms of the loan were quite favorable to your institution. It would be a shame to renegotiate them entirely." After Tucker departed, Frank turned to Amelia with newfound admiration. "I've never seen anyone handle Tucker so neatly. Man's been throwing his weight around since they made him manager last year." "Banking is about confidence," Amelia said simply. "Show uncertainty and they smell blood. Show confidence and they fall in line." The older foreman chuckled. O'Malley sure knew what he was doing when he put you in charge. Come on, we've got more calves to brand. The branding was completed the following day, and Amelia spent the third day of Jackson's extended absence preparing comprehensive reports on everything that had transpired while he was gone. She wanted him to see immediately that his trust had been well placed, that his ranch had thrived under her stewardship. When she heard horses in the yard late that afternoon, her heart leapt. Setting aside her papers, she smoothed her hair and hurried to the porch. Jackson was dismounting as she appeared, looking trail-worn but satisfied. Beside him, a well-dressed man she didn't recognize was handing his reins to one of the ranch hands. "Amelia," Jackson called, his face brightening at the sight of her. "Everything still standing?" "All in order," she assured him, unable to suppress her smile. "Welcome home." He crossed to the porch in long strides, then surprised her by taking both her hands in his. "I hear you saved my best cattle from flooding and faced down Tucker from the bank," he said, his gray eyes warm with approval. "News travels, even to Denver." Amelia blushed at his praise. "We had some excitement, but nothing we couldn't handle." Jackson's smile widened. "Already thinking of the ranch as partly yours, I see." Before she could respond to this unexpected observation, Jackson turned to introduce his companion, who had joined them on the porch. "Amelia, this is Harold Whitfield from Chicago. He represents a consortium of meat packers interested in establishing a direct relationship with quality beef producers. Mr. Whitfield, this is Miss Amelia Mason, my North Pasture foreman, and it seems, my very capable ranch manager in absentia." Whitfield tipped his hat respectfully. "A pleasure, Miss Mason. Mr. O'Malley has spoken highly of your contributions to his operation." "The pleasure is mine," Amelia replied, intrigued by the business possibilities this visitor represented. "Will you be staying with us, Mr. Whitfield?" "Just overnight," the businessman confirmed. "I'm continuing to the Sanders Ranch tomorrow, then back east. Mrs. Hernandez has prepared an excellent dinner," Amelia assured him. "If you gentlemen would like to refresh yourselves after your journey, I'll let her know you've arrived." As the men went to clean up, Amelia informed Mrs. Hernandez of their guest's arrival. The housekeeper immediately began final preparations for the special meal she'd been keeping warm. "Will you join them for dinner, señorita?" Mrs. Hernandez asked. Amelia hesitated. Now that Jackson had returned, her role as temporary mistress of the house was technically finished. Propriety suggested she should return to her cabin in the North Pasture, resuming her more limited responsibilities. "I should probably return to my own quarters," she said reluctantly. "Mr. O'Malley will want to discuss business with Mr. Whitfield without my most knowledgeable advisor." Jackson's voice came from the doorway. He had changed into clean clothes and looked markedly refreshed. "I think not. You've managed this ranch in my absence, Amelia. Your insights will be valuable to our discussions with Whitfield." Warmth spread through Amelia at his words. "If you're certain." "Completely," Jackson confirmed. "In fact, I'd like you to present the breeding program expansion to Whitfield after dinner. You understand the numbers as well as I do, and it will demonstrate the comprehensive nature of our operation." Dinner proved to be a lively affair. Mr. Whitfield was an engaging conversationalist with a keen mind for business. He asked intelligent questions about the ranch operations, paying particular attention when Amelia spoke about their methods for ensuring consistent quality in their beef. "Quality is precisely what my associates are seeking," Whitfield explained as they moved to the study for after-dinner coffee. "The market is changing. Consumers in eastern cities are becoming more discerning. They want to know their meat comes from well-raised, properly handled animals." That's always been our philosophy, Jackson said, gesturing for Amelia to take the chair beside his at the desk. Quality over quantity, though we've managed to achieve both in recent years. Amelia presented the breeding program expansion as Jackson had requested, explaining how selective breeding would further improve their stock while increasing resilience to harsh winter conditions. Whitfield listened attentively, occasionally glancing between her and Jackson with thoughtful consideration. "You two make a formidable team," he observed when she had finished. "It's unusual to find such harmony in a business partnership." Amelia felt her cheeks warm at the implication. "Mr. O'Malley is a progressive employer," she said carefully. "He values competence above more traditional considerations." "Indeed I do," Jackson agreed, his gaze lingering on her face a moment longer than necessary. "And I've been rewarded for it. The ranch has never run more smoothly than since Miss Mason joined our operation." The business discussion continued for another hour before Whitfield excused himself, pleading fatigue from the journey. After Mrs. Hernandez showed him to the guest room, Jackson and Amelia remained in the study, suddenly alone together for the first time since his return. "I should be going as well," Amelia said, rising from her chair. "It's a long ride back to the North Pasture cabin." "Stay," Jackson said, the single word carrying weight beyond its simplicity. When she looked at him questioningly, he clarified, "In the house, I mean. It's late, and you've been sleeping here while I was gone anyway. Mrs. Hernandez is here as chaperone. There's no impropriety." Amelia hesitated, torn between practicality and the awareness that remaining under Jackson's roof now that he had returned felt different somehow. "I've missed our conversations," he added softly. 3 weeks is a long time when you're accustomed to daily exchanges with someone whose mind you respect. The admission touched her deeply. "I missed our talks too," she confessed. Jackson moved to the sideboard and poured 2 small glasses of whiskey. "Then stay, have a nightcap with me and tell me everything that happened while I was away. The full story, not just the business details." He handed her one of the glasses, their fingers brushing in the exchange. The simple contact sent a now familiar warmth through Amelia's veins, intensifying her awareness of him as a man rather than merely her employer. "Very well," she agreed, taking a small sip of the amber liquid. "Though I should warn you, the story includes a dramatic rescue of your prize cattle from rising floodwaters." Jackson's eyebrows rose. "Frank mentioned something about that. He was quite impressed with your horsemanship." "Your black gelding deserves most of the credit," Amelia said modestly. "He's a remarkable animal." "Midnight is indeed special," Jackson agreed, "but a horse is only as good as its rider." He settled into his chair, watching her with undisguised admiration. "Tell me everything." As Amelia recounted the events of his absence, Jackson listened intently, occasionally asking questions but mostly absorbing her narrative with evident pride in her handling of various situations. When she described her confrontation with the banker, he laughed outright. "I would have paid good money to see Tucker's face," he said, shaking his head in amusement. "The man's been trying to extract additional fees from me for years." "He underestimated your choice of management," Amelia replied, allowing herself a small smile of satisfaction. "As did I," Jackson said, his expression turning serious. "Not your capability, I never doubted that, but the extent to which you would embrace the responsibility make it your own." He leaned forward, studying her face in the lamplight. "You love it, don't you? The ranch, the work, the life." The question caught Amelia off guard with its perceptiveness. "I do," she admitted. "More than I expected to. There's something fulfilling about seeing direct results from your decisions, watching the land and animals respond to proper care." "Exactly." Jackson's face lit with understanding. That's precisely how I've always felt. Most people see only the hardship, the early mornings, physical labor, constant challenges. They miss the satisfaction, the connection to something real and lasting. The shared sentiment created a moment of perfect understanding between them, a recognition of kindred spirits that transcended their different backgrounds and positions. "It's late," Jackson said finally, setting down his empty glass. "And tomorrow will come early, as always on a ranch." Amelia nodded, suddenly reluctant for the evening to end despite her fatigue. "Good night, Jackson, and welcome home." As she turned to leave, he caught her hand gently. "Amelia." Her name on his lips sounded like a question and an answer simultaneously. "Thank you. Not just for managing the ranch, but for understanding why it matters." His thumb traced a small circle on her palm, the gesture sending shivers up her arm. For a breathless moment, Amelia thought he might pull her closer, might act on the unspoken attraction that had been building between them for months. Instead, he released her hand with visible reluctance. "Sleep well," he said softly. Amelia nodded, unable to form words past the tightness in her throat, and slipped from the study. As she climbed the stairs to the guest room she'd occupied during his absence, her mind swirled with conflicting emotions. Something had shifted between them tonight, boundaries blurring, possibilities emerging. What did it mean for her future? For her hard-won independence, and most troublingly for her heart? The next morning, Amelia rose early, determined to maintain her professional composure despite the confusing emotions stirred by the previous evening's conversation. She dressed in her usual practical attire and headed downstairs, where she found Jackson and Whitfield already at breakfast. "Good morning, gentlemen," she greeted them, accepting the coffee Mrs. Hernandez immediately provided. "Miss Mason," Whitfield acknowledged. "I was just telling O'Malley that I'm impressed with what I've seen of his operation. I believe we can do business together." "That's wonderful news," Amelia said sincerely, taking her seat. Jackson smiled over his coffee cup. "Mr. Whitfield is proposing a contract for 100 head per month, guaranteed purchase for the next year." Amelia quickly calculated the implications. "That's a significant commitment. We'd need to adjust our herd management strategy, possibly acquire additional grazing land to the east." "My thoughts exactly," Jackson agreed, his expression revealing his pleasure at her quick analysis. "I mentioned the Davidson property that adjoins our eastern boundary. It's available." Amelia asked, immediately interested. "Old Mr. Davidson mentioned last fall he might sell, but I hadn't heard it was officially on the market." "It isn't yet," Jackson replied, "but Davidson's son wrote to me from St. Louis. The old man passed last month and the son has no interest in ranching. He's offering me first opportunity to purchase." The conversation continued through breakfast, the three of them discussing logistics, pricing, and implementation of the potential contract. Whitfield watched their exchange with evident fascination, noting how they anticipated each other's thoughts and built upon shared knowledge without need for explanation. After breakfast, Jackson offered to show Whitfield the main cattle operation before his departure. Amelia excused herself to check on the north pasture, promising to return by noon to bid the businessman farewell. As she rode toward her cabin, Amelia found herself contemplating the future with new possibilities. If the Chicago contract materialized, the ranch would expand significantly. Her responsibilities would likely grow as well. The thought excited rather than intimidated her. She had proven herself capable of far more than she'd imagined possible just months ago. At the north pasture, she found Thomas and the others already hard at work, repairing a section of fence damaged during the recent storms. They greeted her with easy familiarity, updating her on the cattle count and minor issues requiring attention. "Boss back, then?" Thomas asked as they walked the fence line together. "Yes, he returned yesterday with a potential buyer from Chicago. It could mean big changes for the ranch if the deal goes through." Thomas nodded thoughtfully. "Reckon your job will change too." Now that he's seen how you handle the whole operation, the question mirrored her own thoughts so closely that Amelia smiled. "Perhaps. We haven't discussed it yet." "Well, whatever happens, we'd hate to lose you here," the veteran cowboy said gruffly. "You've done right by us and the cattle." His simple endorsement meant more to Amelia than any formal recognition. "Thank you, Thomas. That means a great deal coming from you." By the time she returned to the main house, Whitfield was preparing to depart. The businessman shook her hand with genuine respect. "It's been illuminating, Miss Mason. I look forward to our partnership, both the ranch's and yours personally." "Safe travels, Mr. Whitfield," she replied. "We'll await your formal proposal." After the businessman rode away, Jackson turned to Amelia with barely contained excitement. "This could be exactly what we need to take the ranch to the next level. Guaranteed prices, direct market access, premium rates for quality." Amelia couldn't help but notice his use of "we" rather than "I," a subtle but significant indication of how he viewed their relationship. "It's an outstanding opportunity," she agreed. "Have you decided about the Davidson property?" "I'd like your opinion on that," Jackson said, gesturing toward the study. "I have the details of the offer inside." For the next hour, they pored over maps and figures, analyzing the potential expansion with the thoroughness of true partners. The Davidson land would increase their grazing capacity by nearly 30%, enabling them to support the larger herd needed for the Chicago contract. "The initial investment is substantial," Amelia noted, reviewing the asking price. "But with the guaranteed contract, we could recoup it within 2 years." Jackson nodded in agreement. "That's my assessment as well." He leaned back in his chair, studying her with an expression she couldn't quite interpret. "Amelia, there's something I'd like to discuss with you, about your position here." Her heart skipped a beat. Was he going to offer her a more permanent role in the broader ranch management? Or perhaps he felt her temporary oversight of the entire operation had fulfilled her usefulness, and he would return her solely to the north pasture. "Of course," she said, striving to keep her voice neutral. Jackson rose from his desk and moved to the window, looking out over his land for a long moment before turning back to her. "These past months, you've become indispensable to this ranch and to me. Your management of the north pasture has exceeded all expectations, and your handling of the entire operation during my absence proved what I already suspected. You have a natural gift for this work." Pride warmed Amelia's cheeks. "Thank you. That means a great deal coming from you." "I'm considering a significant restructuring of our management approach," he continued. "With the expansion and the Chicago contract, we'll need more distributed oversight. Frank would continue supervising the day-to-day cattle operations, but I'd like you to take on a broader role overseeing the business aspects of the entire ranch, working directly with me on strategic decisions." The offer was beyond anything Amelia had dared hope for a true partnership in all but name. "That's a tremendous opportunity, Jackson. I'm honored by your confidence." "It's not charity or favoritism," he said firmly. "It's recognition of your proven abilities. The position would come with increased compensation, of course, and—" He hesitated, seeming uncharacteristically uncertain. "And I'd like you to consider taking permanent residence in the main house." Amelia's breath caught. "In the main house? But that would be improper." "Perhaps by some narrow-minded standards," Jackson acknowledged. But there's another possibility that would address those concerns completely. He moved closer, his expression intensely serious. Amelia, over these past months, my admiration for you has grown into something much deeper. I find myself thinking of you not just as a valuable colleague, but as the woman I want by my side in all aspects of life. Realization dawned slowly. Jackson, are you? I'm not expressing myself well, he said with a self-deprecating smile. Let me be clearer. Amelia Mason, I'm asking if you would consider becoming my wife. Not as a business arrangement or practical solution, but because I've fallen in love with your spirit, your intelligence, your determination, everything that makes you the remarkable woman you are. Emotion flooded Amelia's chest, a mixture of joy and disbelief. You love me. Jackson took her hands in his, drawing her gently to her feet. More than I thought possible. When Holloway returned you for being too stubborn, he revealed himself as a fool and did me the greatest favor of my life. Your so-called stubbornness, your strength of character, your unwillingness to diminish yourself is exactly what I admire most about you. Exactly what I need in a partner. Tears blurred Amelia's vision. I never thought. I believed you saw me only as a capable employee. At first, perhaps, he admitted. But watching you thrive here, seeing your passion for this land and this life, I recognized something rare and precious. I recognized a woman who could truly share my dreams because they had become her dreams too. His hands moved to frame her face, his touch infinitely gentle. I don't want an answer now. It's a significant decision. Take time to, yes, Amelia interrupted, her heart too full to contain. My answer is yes, Jackson, I love you too. For a moment, he simply stared at her, joy dawning across his features. Then he pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that conveyed all the unspoken longing of the past months. Amelia responded with equal fervor, her arms sliding around his neck as she surrendered to the happiness unfurling within her. When they finally parted, both breathless, Jackson rested his forehead against hers. Are you certain? This life isn't easy. The work never ends. There will be droughts and floods and 1,000 challenges we can't foresee. Amelia smiled, her heart lighter than it had ever been. I'm certain. Those challenges don't frighten me, especially not when faced together. Together, he repeated, the word a promise and a celebration simultaneously. That's all I want, Amelia. All I need. Their second kiss sealed the promise, sweet and unhurried, the first of many to come in a lifetime of partnership. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn day with the mountains gleaming in the distance, Amelia Mason became Amelia O'Malley in a ceremony attended by the entire ranch staff and most of Willow Creek. She wore a simple but elegant ivory dress that Mrs. Hernandez had helped her make, with wildflowers in her hair instead of a formal veil. The celebration afterward was held at the ranch, with tables set up in the yard and lanterns strung between trees. As twilight settled over the land, Jackson led his bride in their first dance as husband and wife, watched by their friends and employees. Happy Mrs. O'Malley, he murmured against her ear as they moved together. Completely, she assured him, her arms around his neck. Though I still can't believe how much has changed in a year. From returned mail order bride to ranch mistress, it's rather remarkable. Jackson chuckled softly. Not remarkable at all when one considers the woman in question. You were always meant for this life, Amelia, for this land. His voice deepened. For me. As darkness fell, they slipped away from the celebration to stand together on the porch of what was now their shared home. The vast Wyoming sky spread above them, stars emerging in brilliant profusion, while the sounds of music and laughter drifted from the yard. "What are you thinking?" Jackson asked, his arm secure around her waist. Amelia leaned against his shoulder, contentment filling her completely. I'm thinking about how sometimes what seems like our greatest disappointment can lead to our greatest joy. If Holloway hadn't rejected me for being too stubborn, then I wouldn't have found the perfect woman to share my life and my dreams, Jackson finished, turning her to face him. His loss, my immeasurable gain. He kissed her then, a kiss that promised a lifetime of partnership, respect, and love, a kiss that confirmed what Amelia already knew. Being stubborn, being true to herself, had led her exactly where she was meant to be. 5 years later, Amelia sat on the front porch of the O'Malley ranch house, watching as Jackson played with their 3-year-old son, Thomas, named for the loyal foreman who had become like family. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, where their second child, a daughter, according to Agnes Potter's experienced prediction, would arrive within the month. The ranch had flourished beyond even their ambitious expectations. The Chicago contract had expanded to include 3 other major meat packers, and the O'Malley breeding program had gained national recognition for producing exceptionally hardy, high-quality stock. They now employed over 30 full-time hands and had expanded to include the Davidson property and 2 additional adjoining parcels. Through it all, Amelia and Jackson had maintained their partnership in business and in life. She still managed the accounts and business correspondence, made strategic decisions alongside her husband, and occasionally rode out with the men when conditions demanded all available hands, though less frequently since Thomas's birth. Jackson looked up from his play with their son and caught her watching them. His smile, still as potent as the day they'd met, warmed her from within. He whispered something to Thomas, who giggled and ran toward Amelia with his arms outstretched. "Mama, Papa says baby sister is coming soon." Amelia gathered her son into her lap, kissing his dark curls. "She is indeed. Are you excited to be a big brother?" Thomas nodded solemnly. "I will teach her everything. How to ride and count cows and be stubborn like Mama." Jackson, who had followed their son to the porch, laughed aloud. "That's right, son. Being stubborn is the most important lesson of all, at least in this family." He sat beside Amelia, one arm around her shoulders, the other hand joining hers on her rounded belly. As the sun set over their land, painting the horizon in brilliant golds and reds, Amelia marveled at the journey that had brought her here from a rejected mail-order bride to the beloved matriarch of a thriving ranch and family. "Any regrets?" Jackson asked softly, seeming to read her reflective mood. Amelia turned to him, her heart full of the love they had built together. "Not a single one. Being stubborn led me exactly where I was meant to be here, with you, creating something that will outlast us both." Jackson kissed her tenderly, his touch still sending shivers through her after all these years. "To stubbornness, then," he murmured against her lips, "the quality that brought me the greatest happiness of my life." As their son scrambled down to chase a butterfly across the yard, Amelia and Jackson remained on the porch, hands intertwined, watching the future they had built together unfold before them, a legacy of love that had begun with a simple recognition. Sometimes, what others see as a flaw is actually your greatest strength. And sometimes, the right person values exactly what others reject, seeing the treasure where others see only trouble. For Amelia O'Malley, being too stubborn had proven to be exactly what she and Jackson had needed all along.